So it is 3 p.m. I guess we can get started. So we'll start the proceedings with the recitation from the Holy Quran, and I'm going to be reciting the 5 verses from Surah Alaq. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Iqra bismi rabbikal ladzi khalaq, khaliqal insana min alaq. Iqra wa rabbikal akramul ladzi allama bil qalam. Allamal insana ma lam ya'lam. Recite in the name of your Lord who created man from a clot of congealed blood. Recite, and your Lord is most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man, and what he did not know. So with this, I welcome you all to the first in a series of webinars that the Anjuman Wazifa Sadat would be holding under the initiative that we launched this year with the name of a panel of academicians. And for the Anjuman, for most of you probably would know, but I would just repeat, the Anjuman has been here in the US for the last 30 years with the sole purpose of providing financial assistance to the students in the community by way of providing interest-free loans for them to pursue undergrad, grad, and postgrad education here in the US. And the purpose of this initiative was to add more value-added services for the students in the community and go beyond just providing financial assistance, but also providing guidance and things that the students can benefit from as they progress in their educational journey. So today we have a panel of some esteemed speakers who are active in academia, and the host for today's program is Dr. Uzma Rizvi. And so Uzma will be the moderator for today's session. And by way of introduction, so Uzma received a PhD from the University of Pennsylvania in anthropology and is currently Associate Professor of Anthropology and Urban Studies at the Pratt Institute and visiting faculty at Shah Abdul Latif University in Khairpur, Pakistan. With 4 books, numerous articles, and awards, Professor Rizvi's work intentionally interweaves archaeology with cultural criticism, philosophy, critical theory, art, and design. With nearly 2 decades of work on decolonizing methodologies, intersectional and feminist strategies, and transdisciplinary approaches, her work has intentionally pushed disciplinary limits and demanded ethical decolonial praxis at all levels of engagement, from teaching to research. She was recently the chair of the New York Academy of Sciences Anthropology section, and she's currently the principal investigator for the Laboratory of Integrated Archaeological Visualization and Heritage, an interdisciplinary space bringing together archaeological research with data management, visualization, and heritage practice. Their current project is focused on Mohenjo-daro, the 3rd millennium BCE city in Sindh, Pakistan. She's recently joined the executive committee of the Anjuman. And with that, Uzma, it's over to you.
Thank you so much. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Vahibai, thank you so much for that introduction and for creating the space for this discussion. My name is Uzma Rizvi, and today, as Vahibai said, I'm going to be moderating a panel on advising, mentoring, and networking. I'm joined today by panelists Drs. Jaffrey, Momin Rizvi, and Riaz, who will talk through real-life examples of these 3 aspects as they relate to higher education. So now the main aim, it's important to kind of understand the framework, right? So the main aim of advising, both at the undergraduate and graduate level, is to help students develop strategies for success and figure out ways to help them understand the curriculum, the purpose of their academic program, and an advisor often encourages and nurtures self-motivation, self-direction, problem solving, critical thinking, and decision-making. Now, in contrast, mentorship teaches the mentee how to trust their own decisions and how to sift through information about career choices and pathways forward. And finally, time and time again, research has shown that one's non-monetary net worth is an accumulative understanding of their networks, their reach, and their influence within a field. Networking helps our students find opportunities to advance their careers. So in each of these cases, finding support and assistance is key. And our panelists will talk through their own experiences and what they have learned along the way. Now, before I introduce our panelists, I just want to remind you that what you are going to hear today is really a culmination of many years. And so for our students listening in today and sometime in the future through the recording, I just want to make sure that instead of stressing out about what your life after you hear all of this information is going to be, I want you to realize that this has happened over many, many years. And you as a student just need to know that there are many ways to navigate all of this. And there are folks here to help you to do that. This really is geared to providing you with all sorts of information so that you know where to look when you need it. You don't need to feel the pressure to implement everything today. We'll have this as a recording, so you can always use this as a resource and watch it again if there was something you wanted to go back to. Or if you have a friend who's like having an issue and you're like, oh, I heard this panel, here's the recording, right? So there are ways in which you can kind of keep coming back to this information. We're going to reserve some time at the end of the discussion for a Q&A, but feel free to enter any questions you have into the chat through the course of the Zoom, and we'll try to get to them. If not at the end of the panel, depending on the question, I might even try to integrate it into the conversation. So we'll see how that goes. So for our panel today, I'm joined by Dr. Zafreen Jaffrey, who is a PhD in education. She's the Senior Evaluation Associate at Behavioral Science Research Institute. Dr. Jaffrey holds a PhD in education and educational leadership, specializing in curriculum and instruction from Portland State University. She has more than 2 decades of professional experience in helping practitioners and policymakers use data and research evidence to solve complex problems. As a Senior Evaluation Associate at Behavioral Science Research Institute, she supports clients to improve access to equitable education and healthcare by contributing expertise in qualitative mixed methods research and evaluation to help close achievement and opportunity gaps. She's a visiting faculty member at the Florida International University's Women and Gender Studies Department and serves as the secretary for Miami-Dade County Public School System's Student Health Advisory Committee. We're also joined by Dr. Shazia Momin Rizvi. She too is a doctor. She has a doctorate in education and is currently a special educator in Montgomery County Public Schools in Rockville, Maryland. Dr. Momin Rizvi is a graduate from Hofstra University and the University of Phoenix. She earned her bachelor's degree from Hofstra in 2006 in psychology and a dual certification in early childhood education and elementary education. In 2008, she earned a Master's of Science degree from Hofstra University in special education, teaching children with disabilities. In 2011, Shazia obtained a Certificate of Advanced Studies in Special Education, Assessment and Diagnosis. Most recently, Shazia has completed her doctoral journey and was awarded a Doctor of Education in Educational Leadership with a specialization in curriculum and instruction. As a special education teacher in various counties within the states of New York and Maryland, Dr. Momin Rizvi has had the opportunity to work with a diverse student population. Her students were not only culturally diverse, but varying in learning levels as well. She's had the opportunity to teach students with disabilities, such as behavioral, personality, and attention disorders, to more severe disabilities like autism and intellectual development disability. She's been a mentor to teacher interns and new educators. She works with teachers, para-educators, and other support personnel to create learning environments suitable for diverse learners. And finally, we're joined by Kashif Riaz, who is the science advisor at Squeagle and director of data engineering at Securian Financial. He's been providing data science and data architecture oversight for more than a decade at various organizations. Dr. Riaz is a thought leader for creating data strategy and mobilizing the data programs. He's worked in legal, finance, risk and compliance, and insurance sectors. Dr. Riaz specializes in designing large-scale data architecture to solve complex business initiatives by utilizing state-of-the-art technologies like artificial intelligence and blockchains. He's well-versed in data architecture challenges of legacy data silos, data residency, and data privacy regulations. He's the principal on various state-of-the-art machine learning and natural language processing initiatives that disrupted well-established systems for search engines and question answering algorithms. Besides creating custom solutions, he has deep expertise in using third-party AI-based solutions like AWS, Azure, Google, and IBM Watson. Dr. Kashif Riaz has a doctorate in computer science from the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, focusing on machine learning, information retrieval, and linguistics. His research focuses on multilingual natural language processing and machine learning. He has published numerous peer-reviewed papers and given talks at international conferences. He's a recognized expert in computational linguistics for the processing of morphologically rich right-to-left languages. His algorithms are the benchmark for named entity recognition and stemming for Urdu language processing. And so we have a very esteemed and yet diverse group of panelists. And so maybe perhaps Kashif, since I actually ended with your introduction, maybe we could start off with our first question. So can you talk a bit about what or who is an advisor? And at what stages should be looking for advisors? Like when? You're muted.
Yes. Let's see. So there are a number of different kind of advisors: academic advisors and non-academic advisors. The idea here is that we are talking today about the academic advisors mostly, and if there are questions about the non-academic advisors, we can answer that later. But when we are looking at academic advisors, I categorize them into undergraduate advisors and graduate advisors. Within graduate advisors, you have someone you want to do master's or want to do a dissertation with. So there are others who can talk a little bit more about the graduate advising and what that means. Either you have to write a thesis or a dissertation. But I think that a lot of us who come in and they want to do some undergraduate 4-year program, it is important to understand the value of an undergraduate advisor also, because they provide a very important purpose. At least they did for me when I came from Pakistan, right? I mean, I had undergraduate degree in Pakistan and here also, where there were advisors there, but they were a little bit more informal. But here you had to pick an advisor. The idea of an advisor was right away to help you pick a program. There is an advisor that a university gives you, and there are international advisors, international student advisors. Then there are a university gives you an advisor, then your major gives you an advisor. And then you have to kind of work through that. Okay, if you already know what your major is, you try to get in there. And their purpose, and you have to build a relationship with them more than simply going at the start of the semester or for next semester, say, can you please sign these things that I need to register for classes? It's okay. There needs to be some sessions with them to understand that what is your plan to graduate, because the major purpose for them is to help you go through the prerequisites, how to line them up, and what are the areas you want to specialize in, help you with internships, if you want to go into non-academia or industry also. And it makes a difference even for an undergraduate academic advisor if you are part of a small university or a big university. In a big university, you want to pick an advisor that is still, because you want to have some time with them more than office hours, etc., to work through that, and more than your TAs. But then with the smaller university, the idea is that there is not as many TAs. It's your person you're talking to. Mostly they can help you through to figure out which courses are difficult. How do you line them up? This is something you're starting new. Maybe your load for 16 credits is too much. 12 you should go with, or you need to be able to say that, okay, this teacher is hard, this teacher is not, along those lines. So I do think that undergraduate advisor can play a big role in your career. To work through to help and they can help you figure out what are the internships are. At least advisors that I worked with when I joined, I still am good friends with him after about 24 years or so. Sudarshan Iyengar, he was from South India. He helped me navigate the university coming from, from Pakistan, just what we call, right away, not knowing the university. He helped me understand that which are the teachers to avoid, what are the courses to start with, and at least what helped me the most was I wouldn't necessarily say that was a criteria, but that helped me that he understood and could speak the same language as I could. Right. And then he was able to explain really complex ideas of computer science to me in Urdu or Hindi, however we call it. And that was really helpful for me to do that. We had a relationship that I could actually, he drove me from 40 miles to take a class when I needed to. So very, very good experience, at least from my side.
Yeah, thank you for that. I wonder if I could shift gears from undergraduate to graduate. Maybe Zafreen, Dr. Jaffrey, you can probably speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I think I want to build on what Kashif was saying with regards to the relationship. I think that's building that relationship is key and critical to your success. So I came here to get a doctorate. I was at Portland State University. And I have such deep love and admiration and respect for my advisor, who unfortunately died the same year I graduated, that I don't think a day goes by when I don't think about her. So I think I would add on what Kashif was saying, that you have the ability to be proactive and to seek out and initiate this relationship with your doctoral advisor, if there are any doctoral students here. You could get assigned an advisor, but fortunately in my case, the advisor I got assigned left the university. So I was able to go around being in the program, take classes from various professors, and really choose a person that I felt like would be a good role model, good inspiration, good mentor for me. I think it's also important to set very clear boundaries around roles and expectations and working style and what the preference of your advisor is. So I would submit her my paper once a week. She will review it and give me feedback the following week. And we did this pattern for 6 years until I, went through all my exams and completed my dissertation. I realized afterwards, just when you're nodding your head, I realized that this was not very normal. I mean, this is a very special relationship. But I think that just being proactive, asking for help, just taking your time in choosing a doctoral advisor, because it's a very important decision of your life, and just initiating that from your end, just going to people, exploring what their interests are, is there intersection with your interest. I think that those are some critical things.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I wonder if, as we move to Shazia, Shazia, maybe you can talk through advising, but also that complex and very overlapping relationship with mentorship. Right. Yes. So what are some of the things we're looking for in a mentor? So maybe advising to mentorship, if you can take us. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Yes, definitely I can. And I'm going to take myself way back to, I'm not going to date myself, but I'm going to take myself way back to my undergrad, where when I started college, and I'm a first generation in America, my parents came from India and Pakistan, and, we're the first kids going to college in our, entire family. So what do we do? And I initially wanted to become a lawyer. I'm totally on a different end. I wanted to become a criminal lawyer. And I guess my parents saw too many movies at that time. And they were like, oh no, Allah, do not become a lawyer, anything but a lawyer. And then, in our culture, it's always seen you either become a doctor or you could go into finance. So, it's not really, if those are not your interests, then those are not what you're going to excel at. You might be able to do it, but you probably won't excel at it. You won't be interested in it. But for me, initially, just even starting undergrad, trying to figure out what college to go to, what courses I should be taking, which courses would be most beneficial for me for a program. And then just building on what Zafreen and Kashif had said, that relationship with your advisor helps you to develop that advisor into a lifelong mentor. And so just for everybody in the audience here, just remembering that the advisor is the one who directs you. They help you with your present and current situation, but a mentor is one who guides you, and they can guide you from beginning to end, and even after the end. You think you're finished, but you're not. So just using my own personal experience, that I am just echoing what Kashif and Zarfeen said, just developing that relationship, that really is important with advising.
How about like mentors? Like, is there a way in which we can think about like how mentorship is distinct? Like maybe one of your stories about like how you found like a mentor to help guide, support.
Yes, and
committee members. Definitely.
Yes,
Let's talk about
yes,
committee
yes.
members.
Yes. So, one of the things that you want to look in for our mentor is that support on the long-term goals. If there are any doctoral candidates right now in our audience, one thing that you will have to have towards the end is you will have to have committee members. You'll have to have at least 2 committee members and 1 chair for your dissertation. And for me, that was like a breaking point in my doctoral journey, that I was ready to quit after 6.5 years of research and just moving forward. I was like, I cannot do this anymore, because I had such difficulty finding committee members in my field. So for a mentor, I was looking for that guidance, like the overall guidance on how to help me, even if they weren't going to be my committee members, to network for me, to help me find the right mentors or the committee members. I really wish, I love that we are doing this right now for our rising students. And I wish it was there when I was doing this 10 years ago, but we're here, mashallah, and we will help.
Can I've received a question in the chat, like, and people, please remember, all of our audience members, feel free to, you can DM me or you can write to the whole group, ask questions as they come up. You said something, Shazia, about following your passion versus things to just, doing a degree just to get by. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, like I said, I wanted to become a criminal lawyer. And my parents saw too many movies, and I think my parents are in the audience, so I can't really go into detail about all of this, but they were the typical, you're gonna put someone in jail, he's gonna come out and kill you and your family. So what do I do? So I went into political science. Then I was like, oh, this is not of interest to me. I wanted to do something more. So, and then I went into education, and one thing after another, my passion was education. And now I am teaching. I'm very successful, mashallah, in my field, and I love just being mentors for rising educators.
Yeah, mashallah, that's a great story. I love this idea of your parents being like, oh no, she wants to become a criminal lawyer, But mashallah, you found your way. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
But I think
yes, and that
also to the many. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, and that's why I was just saying that, they were like, okay, we know you love to talk, so another field you can go to is education. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, but I think it's also pointing out to the diversity of fields, right? And so, Kashif, I wonder if you could speak to, the different kind of specificity of fields and mentorship.
So I would say, from my perspective, the mentorship that I had came from many different ways. There are mentors of mine at Cambridge University, and I saw them as I was attending an international conference, and I said, okay, well, it's really hard for me to process Urdu lexicon analyzer statistically. Can you help me? I said, okay. And this is the person who is the founder of information retrieval, has Turing Awards, and saying, okay, well, this is how maybe a good idea to do that for you. And I had a lot of issues in terms of, well, I don't understand signal processing really well, but can I get into speech recognition, etc.? And there was an AT&T lab person. She is in New Jersey these days, but she was working at, who used to work at Bell Labs. And she said, oh, that should not bother you at all. Just focus on linguistic side of things. And that helped me move through a path. And those people are still the mentors. They are not your advisors, but they help you have your guardrails in order to move forward as you're working through. So mentors are really important, more than the advisors at some point. But the important thing is that your mentors and advisors should be able to communicate sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Zafrin, can you talk a little bit about your experience with mentors and perhaps how you yourself are also a mentor?
Sure, sure, happy to. I think just building upon what Kashif Bhai was saying, this ability for mentors to talk to each other, especially on a doctoral committee, is critical. Otherwise, no exams get scheduled. They start fighting with each other. You don't want that. So I first chose the doctoral advisor. Then I went around choosing and shopping for my committee members. And what I realized that I was looking at some intersectionalities. So my work was like field-based research. I was doing it in an international setting. I was really interested in equity-focused work. So I looked for professors who were a good fit. I also had to, unfortunately, not include those professors who did not work along really well with my main advisor. So I had to just kind of like get into the politics a little bit and be like, okay, who do I want to choose and who can still be my mentor? Like this other professor is like still my mentor to this date. But she didn't have to be on my committee for my committee to work smoothly. I also had an Indian professor who was not even in my department, but really understood what it was like to do field work in South Asia, Dr. Shandas, and he graciously accepted to be on my committee. And that was extremely helpful for someone to have that South Asian lens and context to help other people understand what it took for me to do field work in Pakistan. So, and I also had a professor who was not even in my college. He was at Lewis and Clark, but had done a lot of field work and research on education in South Asia. So those very unique perspectives really added and enhanced my understanding. And I would tell you, mentors are people that are in your life throughout the course of your life as you are finding out your passion. So it may not be clear on day one that what your passion is when you start school. So for me, it had to be started as a pre-medicine major, then took journalism, then did English literature, then did English language teaching. Then, I'm like working in applied research right now. And there's at least 24 people that I call my mentor throughout my various stages of my life that have helped me and guided me and coached me. And they may or may not be in the same subject area that I was. So I'm happy to be a mentor to anybody who's seeking out a mentor. But I think seeking out, being proactive, asking people for advice, finding out what they're really interested in, and is there a parallel to what you are interested in, I think would be critical.
For sure. Shazia, go ahead, jump in.
I was just echoing on what Zafrin said. I think it's really important also to find that connection to your topic when you are looking for a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
For me, one of my mentors that I had throughout the years was solely helping me through my methodology in my dissertation. Nothing to do with education, nothing to do with, my topic, just with how to do the research part, how to gather that data, how to process that data. So just finding that connection, finding that parallel, just echoing on that, that is truly very important for your doctoral journey.
And I think you're picking up on something very important, both for a graduate and undergraduate, like to find people who can help you with specific things. So if we go back to Kashif's example of like, this is the one problem I'm having right now versus this other issue, right? You can find people who can actually help you with the specific questions as you move through your career. I find this to also be the case in the ways in which we network, right? So one of the things I always tell my students is that you should have like an elevator pitch, so that if you're doing research, if you have your senior thesis, or if you have a doctoral dissertation, or if you have a master's, like within like a minute or two, like 1 or 2 sentences, you should be able to encapsulate what it is that you're working on so that you can have a conversation and open it up from there. Because it's when you have those kind of intermediary conversations that you are able to find those connections between people. So maybe Zafri, maybe here we can kind of go back to one of the things that you said in your thing about having those connections and building those relationships, and how that might link to networking. We hear so much about networking. It's like, you've got to go out and network, you've got to do this. And it feels kind of amorphous, like we don't really know what it means to network. So can you tell me how one networks, and can you give some examples from your own experiences? Yeah,
sure. I'm happy to do that. I think networking has like some kind of unfortunately a sleazy connotation to it. Like people think, oh, this is like, you know, you just go around or you're looking to get something out of someone. But that's not how I view it. I think networking is really, you are, again, for me, it's like seeking out friends and really seeking out people that may have like, I have some common interest with them. So I think when I go to like conferences or when I go to events or when I'm hosting an event or when I'm volunteering, my intention is always to be genuine and authentic in how I interact with people. And I was at an event yesterday, there was 700 people. And the energy in that room was just amazing because there was like so many people that we've been working with for the last 2 years that we'd never seen in person. So I think that, and even in that 700 people room, which can be very daunting for someone who's just starting to network, there's a young professional who came to me, introduced herself and shook my hand. And I thought, wow, that was really brave. It takes a lot of courage to do that. Just go to a stranger, introduce yourself and say, this is like, this is the work I do. I think it's just genuinely learning about other people and then building your social, sort of like your social capital, really. But again, you are doing it with this intent of, is there something I can learn from this person? Is there something that, like is interesting or fun or unique about this person? And I also do that when I'm volunteering. I was telling the group earlier, I was volunteering at a homeless shelter. And what happened over the years just by volunteering there, I'm now a co-PI on a randomized control trial that we're doing at the shelter. And when I was volunteering, that was never my intent that I would be conducting actual research there. So just keeping an open mind and really putting yourself out there, which could be very daunting in the beginning, but you can start small. I started with going to conferences with my advisors, with my committee members, just learning to see how they were interacting. Like volunteer at a conference event, like be at the front desk table if you're just starting. Be at an event, be a greeter. That can be very daunting for people, but it's a very important, good step to start. I would say just, like going to conferences with either your peers or with your mentors could allow you to step out in a safe sort of space. And then again, volunteering up for events on campus and outside of campus can also give you that opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. And so these are sort of opportunities that we see within the academy, right? So whether you're an undergraduate or a graduate student, the ways in which we are kind of engaging with networking is a very particular kind of way. But there are also other forms of networking that we have, right? So Kashif, I wonder if I could invite you to speak about kind of a little bit more of a breadth of different kinds.
Sure. So the networking for within academics is a little different than what you are networking for jobs or when you're trying to build your connection. And I would say even in both sides or both kinds of it, you really need to be authentic. You're trying to do that. Just don't do the networking for the sake of networking. Have that to be a bit more grassroots, a bit more organic as we're working through. Even you're not looking for a mentor for certain things, is that if you are at a conference, approach someone to say, okay, this is who I am, or if someone had finished a talk about something that what your ideas are with that person. That's a networking, right? LinkedIn, I have actually, it's an excellent tool for me. That I do that with academics or otherwise. Basically, we are there. We have a phone, we have app to work through that. I was actually at an IMI conference in Atlanta and someone wanted to talk to me and wanted to connect and say, okay, well, let's figure out if you're on LinkedIn or not. We both looked up, say, okay, are you at this one? Yes, we at this one, and we have been talking since then. So I think that's the way to work through, to be authentic. Use technology, right? Like LinkedIn or many things that will help you with that.
Great. Speaking of technology, Shazia, do you have ways in which we might be able to think through this?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Technology. Yes. Just to piggyback on that, using other forums too, using Facebook. I know everybody over here, or mostly 90% of the audience probably has a Facebook account. Search your interest groups. You know, make sure when you are searching them that you look for those conferences or those things that you can attend. And you know, the one thing that COVID did bring out in all this is virtual. Everything is virtual. How many of you are listening to us and doing something else at the same time with your video off? So, I mean, you're getting exposed to that knowledge, and you're also, you know, you're attending. Your name's being seen. We know that all the folks that are attending. And then you're also learning about more people. You're learning about at least three panelists that are here that could that you can reach out to, that could also be your advisors or mentors. Also just making sure that your voice is heard, that you're presenting your information, being active. See if you are attending those virtual conferences, if you could be a presenter or you can share your ideas. You know, it's kind of, if you think of it as you're advertising yourself, you're advertising your dissertation or your topic or your whatever, your thesis, and you know, you're your best advocate, so you could do it.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I was just thinking back to something you said earlier, like I think you had said you wish that we had had something like this when we were going through school. And I have to say, like, I do too. And I think that's partly the impetus for doing a program like this, right? Like these are things that we wish we had had, but it takes time to build this kind of infrastructure for our community. And I think this is one of the things that Anjuman's doing really well, is building that infrastructure. And hopefully, inshallah, as we move forward, that infrastructure will continue. I do have one last question, and I'm not going to put the order out here, but if there was one thing you would say to your younger self as a piece of advice from your older self, what might that be? And I'll let any of you start with that one. I know it's the curveball. There has to be one that keeps you on your toes. So I just want to see. I'm just curious. I'm curious to see what you might say. Go ahead, Kashif.
I would say, I'm not sure how many people understand Urdu here, but I would say "Pevasta re shajar se umeed bahar rakh." That's Iqbal has said that. Just have some, you know, tenacity, work through, things will work out, and just keep on connecting with people. And you know, seek advisors, and their advisors will be there for you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Kashif.
Just to echo on that, I would say, don't give up. Keep working through, don't give up. I know there were times where I wanted to give up, but I didn't, and here I am. So just don't give up. I feel like a Nike commercial.
I think Ujman, that's a great question. I think that, you know, my nani, my grandmother used to say that, you know, sara time guzar jata hai. She used to say that, you know, this too shall pass. And it's just a very simple thing. But I don't know, it as I'm getting older and older and older, that had a very profound impact on me, just like remembering her words, like what she said. Because I think I suffered a lot getting through my dissertation, just going back and forth, you know, like from Pakistan and coming back and then explaining to people what it is that I was studying. But I think if I could go back in my younger years and I could tell myself, I would just say, like, this dissertation will get done. You will graduate. You will move on. So like what everyone said, like, don't give up hope. Stay optimistic, stay positive. Have people around you that are your cheerleaders. It could be your immediate family, it could be friends, it could be anybody, it could be your mentors. And like Kashif was saying, just perseverance is critical.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. You know, I have to say, like, that really resonates in terms of having cheerleaders. Like, you know, it is important to persevere, but it's also really wonderful when you have people around you who are really supporting you. I can think back to my own experience, and I grew up, at least my undergraduate and graduate career, if I think about that, at Beth El-Qaim, right, in South Jersey. And I would have an exam and I would come to the aunties and I'd be like, oh my God, I have an exam. Can you please do dua? And like, everyone would do. I'd go to each auntie and be like, please, like, like I'm studying, but I'd also really appreciate it if I could get your duas. So there's a sense of community also in education, right? And this is something really important for us to take away, that we're here for all of you. We can do dua, but we can also give you mentorship advice. We can give you advising advice. We can network with you. We can model this sort of behavior. So at this point, I wanted to kind of open up the floor for questions if we had any. I see that we have a comment already, which I'm happy to read out, unless Sister Mariam, if you'd like to read this out, I'm happy for you to unmute yourself and read it out to us if you'd like, or I can read it out. What would you prefer? I want to make sure everyone feels like their voice is heard. Maybe I'll just read it. Okay. So the comment is, Assalamu alaikum, appreciating Awesome's mission and achievements and the rich resource of its members and volunteers. Maybe suggest a committee be established to research establishing its own Institute of Higher Education. Thank you, Mariam and Ali Asghar Aga. And I think that's a great, idea. I will send it on to the board. And thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for the suggestion. Yeah. Any questions? Any other questions? If there are any students here who might have any questions, and if you don't feel like you want to put it in the chat, you can also DM me directly. Let's see. Okay, so there is a question. I'm going to rephrase it because it's a little long. So for any, and this could be for any of you to respond to. And I think this actually goes back to some things that we have spoken about, and that is that we're often just, there's a limited range of possible fields that we know about. So how might a student go about learning about the different things where they can find their passion, right? Like how does one find that passion? Like what is, if you only know about the doctors and the financial people or the lawyers, and what might you suggest that a student do? Go ahead, Kashif, I see you unmuted.
I mean, at least from my side, I wanted to say, at least when we were talking about the undergraduate stuff, one of the things that my undergraduate advisor told me, I know you want to do computer science and statistics, take general education, broaden your horizon, study literature, do those things. So once you start doing that, right, and I would say that, yeah, there are many people, at least in my field, yes, I have expertise in linguistics and computer science and other areas too. Talk to us. We know people in academia or otherwise where we can connect you, right? As PhD generally is a teaching degree. And one of the jobs of a person who is a doctor to help you connect or to help you, show you what the path is.
Just to echo on that, just exposing yourself to the different fields, getting, when you are taking that undergrad courses, or even in your master's program, if you're there, taking those courses that you may think will be of interest to you. You would never know if you go into computer science, hey, that might be your thing. So exposing yourself.
Yeah, I think that's great. Zafin?
Yeah, I'm going to say add to what Shazia was saying, exposing yourself. I think, again, it comes back to being proactive. So the passion is not going to drop on you, from the heavens one day, right? You just think about the people who diagnosed this vaccine or came up with the inventors, or people who came up with the vaccine for COVID-19. They're probably working on this for 30 years already, right? So it just didn't come to them one day. And so I think with keeping that in mind, just, if you're starting at high school, you're in school, use the summer to do an internship, pick up a book, go through a book with one of your friends and see, I'm reading a book with my friend right now, it's called Belonging, and just going through exercises to kind of see what my passion is, because you also have to continue inventing and reinventing yourself. So I think sometimes you're interested in something and then there's a tangent and you can be interested in something else. So really seek out what makes you happy. And I started as a pre-medicine major. Did my first 2 years, my professor said she was really excelling, and I knew in my heart I couldn't be a medical doctor. And I said to my parents, I cannot do medicine. I just cannot study medicine. That's not where my heart is. So I think be open. open yourself to experiencing failure and discomfort and pain. I hope no one has to experience it, but that's part of learning what your passion is. And my path is very different. Everyone's path is going to be very different. I did have to go through a lot of different majors to be able to say no, 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 and yes, right? And I'm not working really as a professor. I'm working in applied research and evaluation, which is something I never thought when I was going through my program that I was going to do. So explore, keep up your options and possibilities open, and like be on this path to finding and cultivating what your passion is.
I mean, one thing that I would add this to is try to look for cross-disciplinary majors, or and that will help a lot. There are institutes, people who are in Boston. There's Berkman Klein Center that combines between MIT and Harvard. That actually specializes in that. There are many institutes in the bigger universities. They actually specialize in programs on that. The large problems of the society and in general are not solved by taking a SpaceX thing and going to the space. There are problems like hunger, or others. They are solved through interdisciplinary studies by working with each other.
Yeah, and I also think that actually, just coming from a higher ed perspective, interdisciplinarity is actually more the future of of the ways in which we're moving forward. And I look at NSF grants and stuff, and there too, at the National Science Foundation, we're really looking for programs that bring together, like projects that bring together different kinds of expertise. So thank you so much for that question. We have another question, and this one's a short one, so it's easy. And I've asked Vahibhai to join us for this. What is the procedure for applying for a loan? Vahibhai, I need you to unmute. So if you could speak about that, yeah.
Sure. The details of how to go about applying for the loans are all elucidated in detail on our website. The first time around, when it's a new application, the paperwork is slightly more than what it would be going forward if we continue borrowing for subsequent semesters with us. But essentially, it's an application. The applicant would need a guarantor who is a dues-paying member of the Anjuman in good standing. And we do ask for transcripts, the letter of admission with the expenses spelled out, and the tax returns of the parents. And this, and also we need a letter from the center, the Islamic center that you frequently visit, from them, just essentially because our goal is to provide the loans to students of Jafri faith who are practicing. And for that, we need the center that you go to just write us a letter confirming that. Once all of this is received, a reviewer is assigned to the application who would be in touch with the borrower, will assist them in completing any missing information. And then they also conduct a short interview of sorts. After that, when all the applications have been reviewed, the committee meets, and then all the cases are, the reviewers would make the recommendations, the committee deliberates, and the loans are sanctioned. The portal, it's not on our website, it's not open year round. So it will open next time now on June 1st. And the deadline for applications will be June 30th for the fall semester. And then it'll open again on November 1st with a deadline of November 30th for applications for next year's spring semester. So we invite applications twice a year.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Sure.
I hope that answered the question that came through the DM. There's another kind of comment and question that I'm going to open again to the panelists. And because it's very long, I'm going to kind of condense it. So if I miss some part of your question or your comment, please do write back to me so I can add that in. Have you ever had an experience when advisement or mentorship didn't work? And how did you figure that out? Like, what are some of the steps when you're like, I found a person who I think on paper is a good advisor, but in fact, when I work with them, it's not working. What are some steps that a student might take if it's not working for a variety of reasons, right? This could be gender-based, it could be race, it could just be a personality, right?
I could take that from an undergraduate side and even at the graduate side also. I mean, at an undergraduate, you just have to go easily and get a new advisor, and you're fine, right? And that doesn't help us, because it's not as much of a problem to work through that. With the graduate side of things, if you are a master's student, if you have to write a thesis, at least in the sciences that I'm used to, well, the person would say it doesn't take that long to write a thesis, etc. Or there are different kinds of things of those too. So that's possible too. PhD is a very different ballgame, right? In which you need to be able to, you have to figure it out that you have to do a lot of work ahead of time to work through to pick the right person to do that. And if that doesn't work out, then you have to have an honest conversation with the person and your potential advisor if they can work through that. That's a very important thing, that they all live in the same department. You are transitory in that, so they need to make sure that they work together on this space. So at least in my situation, when I did my orals, it was final orals, it was different. But when I did my prelims, my committee was different. But the advisor was the same, committee members were different.
Just to echo on that, you are your strongest advocator. And if it's not working, be professional about it and have that courageous conversation. It is difficult, but it is something that you will need to do if it will impact you in your journey. And it has happened. Not all committee members get along. And that's why I think it's really important to build your networking, your network, and have extra people on hand that you can turn to and say, this is not working for me. This is what I need help. How can you help me? And we can also help too, like we've echoed many times through this.
Yes, I would add that, I think like allies, everybody was saying, it's very important to have allies within your department, outside of your department, to have a sense of what's going on. My first advisor, she was amazing to me, but she was fighting with the dean, and that was going to look very bad on my case too. So one of the professors told me, she's fighting with the dean, stay away from this whole situation right now. And I did, and she left the university, and I was able to pick another advisor of my choice, right? I got very lucky in that way. I think perspective taking is extremely critical. So talk to your mentors, like get perspective of why this mentoring or networking opportunity did not work out for you. Like, what could you learn from that? I think is also critical. And yeah, I think that, I also notice people's behaviors. So I had a professor and I told him, hey, I'm going to come and I'm going to talk to you. And I had to cancel the meeting because I was very sick. And he got very upset about that. And I'm like, okay, this is probably not a good relationship for me, never seeking this person out again. Because, you can't control if you're sick, right? So I think that just noticing those behaviors early on, which could be like, okay, this may not work for me. And then talking to someone else and seeing like, I'm seeing this pattern, what do you think? So I think those things could be critical to your success if something's not working on. But if it's not working on, you really need to have your allies. You need to have a strong case. You need to be like, you need to have a plan for you're changing your PhD advisor is a big deal. So you really need to have allies, a strong case, and a person who's willing to take you on.
Thank you for that. And just, to keep in mind also that in addition to your advisors and your allies and this team that you're kind of, without realizing it, you're kind of building a team of people who are kind of supporting you through your career, is to also think about your friends, right? So your friends and your classmates and your peers in the different classes that you take, or the peers that you meet who aren't from your school, but you might have met them at like some other event, right? They provide support, but they also provide a way to a sounding board, if you will, right? And they continue to be your peers as compared to some of your advisors or some of your teachers who were your teachers. Your friends continue in some sense to be your friends. And so those people who you started computer science with, or those people who you started anthropology with, or those people you started religious studies with, they continued on, and so did you. And so to keep in mind that there has to be a kind of respect also for those who are your professional peers, who become your professional peers, who may also be your friends. Sometimes it's just good to make sure that you're not losing it, right? Like when you're in the middle of a process, sometimes you're just like, did I just imagine that my teacher said this to me, or my advisor said this to me? Should I be upset about it? Should I not be upset about it? How can I respond to this in a way that isn't going to toss my entire career out the window, right? So I think it's important to just keep in mind that your friends can also be your sounding board, and you can often be their sounding board. So I'm looking at the time. We have about 5 minutes, and so I just want to address just one more question, that in case you need to contact anyone at Anjuman, or if you want to talk to us, our email address is info@anjumanwazifa.org. Murtaza, can I ask you to just put that into the chat? So that people, in case you have any questions that come to mind afterwards and you want to continue to have this discussion, I think that would be great. If you have anyone, as we put in the chat, we already have the website in, so that is there. We also want to, this is the first of many, inshallah, many panels. And so we really want to ask if you have any topics of interest for future sessions. We would be interested in knowing that. Also, we're thinking about the next few sessions being more broad-based, perhaps relevant skills and the current economy, success stories of entrepreneurs, sessions of successful professionals in the community, et cetera. So we're thinking about this in a very broad way. It's not just about going to college and going to grad school and then having a job, right? We're actually kind of figure out how to make these sorts of panels and these webinars to be useful. So if there's something particular that you are interested in learning about, please let us know. And again, you can send us an email at info@anjuman.org. We also may be sending out a needs assessment survey later on, and perhaps a poll to follow up, just so that there is some sort of follow-up to this fantastic session. So I'd like you all to join me in thanking our panelists for this incredibly useful collection of resources and ways of thinking. And thank you, audience. Thank you all for joining us. I know it's Ramzan, and so this was it's the middle of the day. I really appreciate that. I think we all really appreciate that. I also wanted to thank the board of the Anjuman, in particular, President Shiraz Hussain, and the executive board members, Vahib Rizvi, Muhammad Ali Haider, and Faisal Ladak, Murtaza Rizvi, for all their help in ensuring that this panel was a success, and they were kind of like the back end support here. Please stay tuned for more events such as these. And if you have any ideas for types of topics you'd like us to talk about, please contact us at info@anjumanwazifa.org. Thank you so much, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you at other events. Khudafis.